No, please! Elena, please! I'm begging you!" Daniel Hawthorne's voice cracked as he knelt on the marble floor of Sterling Industries' main lobby, 300 employees watching him grovel before the woman he'd thrown out like garbage 15 years ago. Elena Castellanos stood over him in a power suit that cost more than his car, her Louboutins clicking against the floor as she circled him like a predator savoring the kill. "You're begging?" Her voice carried across the silent lobby. "How interesting. I seem to remember begging you once. Do you remember, Daniel? When I begged you not to throw me, our 3-year-old daughter, out onto the street in the middle of winter?" Daniel's face was the color of old paper. Sweat stained his collar. His hands shook as he reached for her, desperate, pathetic. "I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, I'll do anything." "Anything?" Elena's laugh was ice. "You'll do anything now that I own your company? Now that I control your debt? Now that one signature from me will leave you bankrupt and homeless?" She crouched down, bringing her face level with his. "Where was anything when your baby daughter was crying for her daddy? Where was anything when I was cleaning toilets at 3 a.m. to keep us fed?" A security guard shifted uncomfortably. A secretary held up her phone, recording. This would be on social media within minutes. Elena didn't care. She wanted witnesses. "You told me I was worthless," Elena continued, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt louder than shouting. "You told me I'd never be anything but a cleaning woman. You told me our daughter was my problem to handle." She stood, looking down at him like he was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "So I became everything you said I couldn't be. I built a $250 million empire, and then I bought you." Daniel's sob echoed in the cavernous lobby. "I didn't know. I never thought—" "You never thought I'd matter." Elena smiled, and it was the coldest thing in the room. "You never thought the woman you threw away could become powerful enough to destroy you. But here we are, Daniel. Here we are." She pulled out a folder, dropped it on the floor in front of him. Papers scattered, foreclosure notices, debt collection letters, legal documents. "Your house? Gone? Your car? Repossessed? Your country club membership? Revoked? Your reputation? Demolished?" Elena ticked off each item on her fingers like a grocery list. "And the best part? Your daughter, our daughter, the one you abandoned. She helped me do it. Isabella is the CTO of my company. She's brilliant, she's extraordinary, and she knows exactly what you did to us." "Isabella," Daniel choked on the name. "Please, let me see her. Let me explain." "Explain what?" Elena's voice could have shattered glass. "That you threw her away when she was 3 because a toddler didn't fit your image? That you married into the Sterling family and never mentioned you had another child? That you erased us like we never existed?" She turned to leave, then paused, delivering the killing blow. "Oh, I almost forgot. Harrison Sterling, your former father-in-law, sends his regards. We've been business partners for 3 years. Lovely man. He was very interested to learn about your hidden family. Very interested indeed." Elena's smile was vicious. "That's why he pulled all Sterling funding from your company last week. That's why Vivian divorced you. That's why you're here, on your knees, begging the woman you once called worthless to save you." Daniel made a sound like a wounded animal. "The answer is no," Elena said simply. "I won't save you. I want you to lose everything. I want you to feel what I felt when you put our baby and me out on the street with $50 and a garbage bag of clothes. I want you to know what it's like to be nothing." She walked toward the exit, her heels clicking a victory march against marble. "Elena!" Daniel screamed after her. "Elena, please, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." She stopped at the door, looked back one last time. "I don't want your apology, Daniel. I want you to remember, every single day for the rest of your miserable life, that the woman you destroyed became powerful enough to destroy you back. And I want you to know that your daughter, the one you called a burden, helped me do it." Elena walked out into the sunshine, leaving Daniel sobbing on the floor, surrounded by 300 witnesses and 100 phone cameras. Her driver opened the door to her Mercedes. She slid into the leather seat, hands finally shaking now that Daniel couldn't see her weakness. Her phone rang immediately. Isabella. "Mom, it's all over Twitter. Are you okay?" Elena closed her eyes, let out a breath she'd been holding for 15 years. "I'm better than okay, baby. I'm free." "Good. Because that man doesn't deserve your thoughts for one more second." Isabella's voice was fierce. "Come home. I made your favorite dinner, and I want to hear how it felt to watch him beg." "It felt," Elena said slowly, a real smile spreading across her face for the first time, "like justice." As her car pulled away from Sterling Industries, Elena glanced back one last time. Through the glass doors, she could see Daniel still on the floor, security guards finally helping him up, his world destroyed. 15 years ago, he'd told her she was nothing. Today, she'd proven that nothing could become everything, and everything could take away everything from the man who'd never believed she mattered. Elena Castellanos had won, and it was only the beginning of her story. When someone who destroyed you ends up broken at your feet, is your victory sweet or empty? Tell us what you think in the comments. 15 years earlier, Elena Ruiz had been cleaning the executive bathrooms at Sterling Industries when she went into labor with Isabella. She remembered the sharp pain that doubled her over, the mop clattering to the tile floor, the way her water broke all over the marble she'd just polished. She remembered calling Daniel, her husband of 4 years, the man she'd worked 2 jobs to put through business school, and hearing the irritation in his voice. "Can't it wait? I'm in the middle of a presentation to Harrison Sterling. This could change everything for us, Elena." "The baby's coming," she'd gasped, gripping the sink. "Daniel, please!" "Call a cab. I'll meet you at the hospital when I'm done here." He'd hung up. Elena had called a cab, had given birth alone. The nurses asked repeatedly where her husband was, their pitying looks making her feel smaller than the contractions ever could. Daniel had shown up 6 hours later, smelling like champagne and cigars, his tie loosened, his eyes bright with triumph. "I got it," he'd said, not even looking at the baby in Elena's arms. "The Sterling account. Harrison loved me. He wants me to marry into the family, wants me to meet Vivian, his daughter. Says I have potential." Then he'd looked down at Isabella, his face twisting with something that might have been disgust. "Jesus, she looks like you, all dark and foreign." Elena had felt something crack inside her chest that day, but she'd told herself it was just stress, just fear, just the hormones. Daniel loved her. He'd married her, hadn't he? This was just a rough patch. She'd been a fool. 3 years of being a fool, actually. 3 years of working night shifts while Daniel climbed the corporate ladder on the connections her labor had paid for. 3 years of hearing him complain that she embarrassed him at company events with her cheap dresses and immigrant accent. 3 years of watching him look at their daughter like she was an inconvenient mistake. And then came the night he'd thrown them out. Elena could still see every detail. Daniel's face, hard and decided. The garbage bag he'd shoved into her hands, filled with her clothes and Isabella's toys. The $50 bill he'd pressed into her palm like he was tipping a server. "You're holding me back," he'd said. "Vivian Sterling is interested in me. Her father wants to bring me into the family business, but I can't do that with this." He'd gestured at Elena and Isabella like they were furniture he was throwing out. "You were supposed to be temporary, Elena. A mistake I made when I was young. I thought you'd make me look stable, married, settled. But instead, you make me look poor." "Daniel, please," Elena had begged, Isabella crying in her arms. Please, we're your family. I love you. Isabella is your daughter." "She's your problem," Daniel had said flatly. "I never wanted a kid. You said you were on the pill. You trapped me with this pregnancy, and I've wasted 3 years pretending to care. I'm done. Get out of my apartment, get out of my life, and don't you dare try to get child support. I'll claim she's not mine. I'll say you cheated. I'll destroy what little reputation you have." He'd closed the door in her face, changed the locks. Refused to answer her calls. Elena had stood in the hallway of that expensive building, the one she'd cleaned for extra money, the one where Daniel had lived in luxury while she struggled, holding her crying daughter and a garbage bag of belongings, and she'd made a choice. She could break, or she could build. She chose to build. That first night, Elena had taken Isabella to a women's shelter, had held her daughter while they both cried, Isabella asking over and over where Daddy was, why Daddy didn't want them anymore. "Daddy made a mistake," Elena had whispered, stroking Isabella's dark curls. "But we're going to be okay, baby. Mama promises we're going to be better than okay." It had been a lie then. But Elena had made it true. The first year was hell. Elena worked 3 jobs, cleaning offices at night, waitressing during the day, and doing bookkeeping on weekends for a small tech startup that paid her under the table. Isabella stayed in daycare during the day and slept on a mat in the break room at night, while Elena scrubbed toilets and emptied trash. But Elena had always been smart. Brilliant, actually, though no one had ever noticed because brilliance in a poor immigrant cleaning woman was invisible. She'd started noticing patterns in the tech startup's inefficiencies. Had mentioned them, casually, to the founder, an exhausted woman named Sarah Chen, who was struggling to keep her company afloat. "Your inventory system is bleeding money," Elena had said one night while emptying Sarah's trash. "You're double-ordering supplies because your tracking software doesn't sync with your ordering platform. I could fix it for you." "I taught myself coding when I was pregnant. Online courses, library computer." Sarah had looked at her, really looked, for the first time. "Show me." Elena had shown her, had built a simple program that saved the startup $30,000 in the first quarter. Sarah had made Elena an offer. "Come work for me, officially. I can't pay much, but I can give you equity, and I can teach you everything I know about running a business." Elena had said yes. That had been the beginning. The first step up from rock bottom. Over the next 5 years, Elena had learned everything: coding, business strategy, negotiation, investment, how to read people and markets and opportunities. She'd turned Sarah's struggling startup into a profitable company. Then she'd started her own, Castellanos Industries, named after her mother's maiden name. The name Elena had taken back after the divorce Daniel had initiated by mail, like she wasn't even worth a conversation. And through it all, Isabella had been there. Growing up in offices and conference rooms, learning to code before she learned to read, brilliant and fierce and determined to prove that the father who'd thrown her away was an idiot. "Mama," Isabella had said at age 8, sitting at Elena's desk at the new Castellanos Industries office, "when I grow up, I'm going to be smarter than Daddy, and then he'll be sorry he didn't keep us." Elena had pulled her daughter close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. Expensive now, not the cheap stuff from the dollar store anymore. "Baby, we don't need him to be sorry. We just need to be successful." "Success is the best revenge." "What's revenge?" "It's when you win," Elena had said simply. "And sweetheart, we're going to win." Now, 15 years after Daniel had thrown them out, Elena sat in her penthouse apartment, Isabella beside her on the couch, both of them watching the video that had gone viral. Daniel on his knees in Sterling Industries' lobby, begging, sobbing, broken. "How does it feel, Mom?" Isabella asked quietly. She was 18 now, brilliant and beautiful, with Elena's determination and a mind that had earned her a full scholarship to MIT at 16. Seeing him like that, does it feel good? Elena thought about the question. Really thought about it. It feels, she said slowly, like closing a chapter. Like finally getting to put down a weight I've been carrying for 15 years. She looked at her daughter. The daughter Daniel had called a burden, a problem, a mistake. It feels like justice. Isabella leaned her head on Elena's shoulder. Good. Because he deserves worse than what you did to him. Maybe, Elena agreed, but what I did was enough. Because the best revenge isn't destroying him, baby. The best revenge is showing him that throwing us away was the biggest mistake of his life. That we didn't just survive without him. We thrived. We did thrive, Isabella said softly. We built an empire. We did, Elena smiled, and tomorrow we're going to expand it even further. Because Elena Castellanos wasn't finished yet. Not by a long shot. She'd won the battle. But the war to prove that she was everything Daniel had said she could never be, was just beginning. The call came at 2 a.m., 3 days after Daniel's public humiliation went viral. Elena was working on expansion proposals when her phone lit up with an unknown number. Ms. Castellanos? A woman's voice, professional but strained. This is Dr. Patterson from Mercy General. We have a Daniel Hawthorne here. He's attempted suicide, overdose. He's asking for you. Says he needs to tell you something about your daughter before it's too late. Elena's blood turned to ice. What about my daughter? He won't say. Just keeps repeating that he needs to talk to you about Isabella. Elena hung up and immediately called Isabella. It rang 6 times. Mom? Isabella's voice was thick with sleep. It's 2 a.m. You're okay, Elena breathed. You're safe. Of course I'm safe. What's wrong? Nothing. Go back to sleep, baby. But after hanging up, Elena sat staring at her phone. He needs to tell you something about your daughter before it's too late. What could Daniel possibly know about Isabella that Elena didn't? Against every instinct, Elena found herself driving to Mercy General at 2:30 a.m. Daniel was in a private room, looking like death. Gray skin, hollow eyes, an IV in his arm. You came, he whispered. The doctor said you had information about Isabella. Elena stayed by the door, arms crossed. You have 2 minutes. She came to see me, Daniel said, his voice hoarse. 3 days ago, after the video went viral, she found my address. Elena's heart stopped. You're lying. I'm not. She came to my apartment. Said she wanted to meet the man who threw her away, wanted to understand why. Isabella wouldn't. But even as Elena said it, she knew it was possible. Isabella was stubborn, curious. I told her everything, Daniel continued, tears streaming, about how stupid I was, how wrong, how I've regretted it every day for 15 years. He looked at Elena with hollow eyes. And I told her about the trust fund. Elena went very still. What trust fund? When Isabella was born, my grandfather set up a trust fund for her. $2 million. It was supposed to be released when she turned 18. Daniel's hands shook. But I had to sign the papers. I had to acknowledge her as my daughter legally, and I never did. I was too ashamed, too worried it would ruin my reputation with the Sterlings. The money has been sitting there for 15 years. $2 million, Elena repeated, her voice dangerous. I told Isabella 3 days ago, told her it was hers, that I'd sign whatever papers were needed. Daniel's voice cracked. But then she asked me one question. She said, if Mom had known about this money, would our lives have been different? And I realized what I'd done. Not just throwing you out, but keeping that money from you. You struggled for years. You and Isabella lived in poverty while $2 million sat in an account because I was too proud to acknowledge my own daughter. Elena felt rage building. white-hot and devastating. You kept money from your child, from us, while we were homeless, while I was working 3 jobs, while Isabella was sleeping on a mat in a break room. I know, Daniel sobbed. I know. And I can't live with it, So you tried to kill yourself? Elena's laugh was bitter. That's the coward's way out. That's you running away instead of facing what you've done. What else can I do? Daniel shouted. I've lost everything, and now Isabella knows about the trust fund, knows I kept it from her, and she said— His voice broke. She said she wished she'd never met me, that I was worse than she'd imagined, that at least when I was a stranger she could imagine I had a good reason. But now she knows the truth, that I'm just nothing. Elena stared at him, this broken man who'd once destroyed her world, and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no triumph, just emptiness. You are nothing, she said quietly. You always were. I just didn't see it until you threw us away. She turned to leave. Elena, wait, the trust fund. I'll sign the papers. I'll give Isabella what's hers. It's the least I can do. Keep your blood money, Elena said coldly. We don't need it. We never did. We built our own fortune. She walked out, leaving Daniel alone with his guilt. But as Elena drove home in the pre-dawn darkness, one thought circled her mind. Isabella had gone to see Daniel, without telling her, without asking. Her daughter had wanted to meet the father who'd abandoned her. And Elena hadn't known. What else didn't she know about Isabella's feelings? About the daughter she'd protected so fiercely for 18 years? Elena pulled into her building's parking garage and sat in the dark, hands shaking, realizing that destroying Daniel might have been the easy part. The hard part was about to begin. Elena didn't go home that night. Instead, she drove to her office, watching the sun rise over the city she'd conquered, and tried to understand why her victory felt so hollow. She'd destroyed Daniel Hawthorne, humiliated publicly, taken everything he valued. It should have felt like justice. Instead, it felt like she was standing on the edge of something breaking. Her phone buzzed. A text from Isabella. Mom, where are you? Your car's not here. Elena stared at the message. Should she confront Isabella about the hospital visit? About going to see Daniel? About keeping secrets? Before she could decide, her office door opened. Marcus Chen, her CFO and closest business partner for the last decade, walked in with 2 cups of coffee. Rough night? He asked, handing her one. You could say that? Elena took the coffee gratefully. Marcus was one of the few people who knew her whole story, had been there when she was building Castellanos Industries from nothing, had believed in her when no one else did. I saw the hospital report, Marcus said carefully. Daniel Hawthorne attempted suicide 3 days ago. You visited him at 2:30 a.m. Elena's head snapped up. How did you— I have alerts set up for anything involving him. You asked me to track his movements after we started the acquisition. Marcus sat across from her. Elena, what's going on? You won. You destroyed him. Why are you still engaging? He told me something about Isabella, Elena said quietly. About a trust fund. $2 million that's been sitting there since she was born. Money that could have changed everything for us. Marcus whistled low. And he never mentioned it? He was too ashamed to acknowledge her as his daughter, too worried about his reputation. Elena's hands tightened on the coffee cup. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that Isabella went to see him 3 days ago, without telling me. She wanted to meet him. She's 18, Marcus said gently. She's allowed to be curious about her father. He's not her father, Elena snapped. A father doesn't throw away his child. A sperm donor isn't a father. Maybe not. But Isabella doesn't know that the way you do. She spent 18 years wondering about him, building him up in her mind as this mysterious figure, and now she finally has answers. Marcus leaned forward. Elena, you've spent 15 years protecting her from the truth about Daniel. Maybe it's time to let her make her own decisions about him. Even if those decisions hurt her? Even then. Because she's not a child anymore. She's a brilliant young woman who deserves agency over her own relationships. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to say that Isabella would always be her baby. That protecting her was Elena's job, that she knew better. But the words died in her throat. Because maybe Marcus was right. Maybe Elena had been so focused on destroying Daniel that she'd forgotten Isabella might need something different. Her phone rang. Isabella's name is on the screen. Elena answered. Hi, baby. Mom, we need to talk. Isabella's voice was tight. I know you went to the hospital. I know Daniel told you I went to see him. Isabella? I need you to come home. Please. We need to talk about this face to face. The line went dead. Elena looked at Marcus, who gave her an encouraging nod. Go. Talk to your daughter. And Elena, listen to what she has to say. Really listen. Isabella was waiting in Elena's penthouse living room, pacing like a caged animal. She'd clearly been crying. Her eyes were red, her face blotchy. Why didn't you tell me? Elena asked immediately. Why did you go see him without telling me? Because I knew you'd react exactly like this, Isabella's voice rose. Because you've spent my entire life telling me he's a monster, that he's worthless, that we're better off without him. But Mom, I needed to know for myself. I needed to meet him and understand why he did what he did. And what did you learn? Elena asked, her voice cold. Did he give you a good reason for throwing away his 3-year-old daughter? No, Isabella said quietly. He gave me excuses, justifications, all the pathetic reasons weak men give when they abandon their families. She met Elena's eyes. But I also learned something about you. Elena went still. What? That you've been lying to me for years. Isabella's voice shook. You told me we were poor because we had to be, that we struggled because that's just how life was. But there was money, Mom, $2 million. Money that could have given us a better life. Money that was mine by right. I didn't know about the money. But you would have rejected it anyway, wouldn't you? Isabella interrupted. Just like you rejected it at the hospital. Keep your blood money, you said. But Mom, it wasn't his money. It was from his grandfather. It was my inheritance. And you don't get to make that choice for me. The words hit Elena like a slap. Isabella, I was trying to protect you. From what? From having a childhood where I didn't have to sleep on a mat in a break room? From having stability? From not watching my mother work herself half to death because she was too proud to take money from the man who hurt her? It's not about pride. It is about pride, Isabella shouted. Your entire revenge scheme against Daniel? That was about pride, about proving you were better than him. But Mom, I didn't need you to prove anything. I just needed you to be my mother, not some avenging angel on a mission to destroy my biological father. Elena felt tears burning her eyes. Everything I did for you, to give you a better life, to show you that we didn't need him. I know, Isabella said, her voice breaking, and I love you for it, I do. But Mom, you didn't just destroy Daniel. You destroyed any chance I had of having a relationship with him. You made sure everyone knows he's a monster. You humiliated him publicly. And now, if I want to have any contact with him, I'm betraying you. Why would you want contact with him? Elena couldn't keep the hurt from her voice. After everything he's done? After what you just said, that he's weak and pathetic? Because he's still my father. Isabella's tears were flowing freely now. And maybe he's a terrible person who made terrible choices. But I'm 18 years old, and I've never had a father. And when I met him, he was broken and sorry and desperate to make amends. And maybe I want to give him that chance. The silence that followed was deafening. Elena stared at her daughter. The daughter she'd raised alone, sacrificed for, built an empire for, and realized she was looking at a stranger. "You want a relationship with him?" Elena said flatly. "With the man who called you a burden? Who threw us out on the street? Who kept $2 million from you because he was too ashamed to acknowledge you existed?" "I want the option," Isabella said quietly. "I want the choice. Because, Mom, you've made every decision in my life. Where we lived, where I went to school, what jobs I took, who I could and couldn't trust. And I love you for protecting me. But I'm an adult now, and I need to make my own choices, even if they're wrong, even if they hurt." Elena felt something crumbling inside her chest. "So what? Are you going to have Sunday dinners with Daniel? Play happy family with the man who destroyed us?" "I don't know what I'm going to do," Isabella said, "but I need space to figure it out. Space from you. Space from this." She gestured around the penthouse at the luxury that Elena's revenge had built. "Space from being the daughter in your revenge story." "Revenge story?" Elena's voice rose. "I built this company for us, for our future." "No," Isabella interrupted, her voice deadly calm. "You built this company to prove Daniel wrong, to show him you were better than he said you were. I was just along for the ride." She grabbed her coat from the chair. "I'm going to stay with Aunt Sarah for a while. Give us both some space to think." "Isabella, please. I love you, Mom. I do. But I can't be part of your war against my father anymore. I need to figure out who I am outside of being the daughter you saved, outside of being the weapon you used against him." She walked out, leaving Elena standing in her multi-million-dollar penthouse, surrounded by the empire she'd built, feeling more alone than she'd felt in 15 years. Her phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "How did it go?" Elena stared at the message, then at the space where her daughter had been standing, and realized something terrifying. She'd won the war against Daniel Hawthorne, but she might have just lost her daughter in the process. Elena spent 3 days trying to reach Isabella, 3 days of unanswered calls, ignored texts, and crushing silence. On the 4th day, Harrison Sterling called. "Elena, we need to meet. There's something you need to know about your company, about Daniel, about everything." They met at his private club, the kind of place Elena would have been thrown out of 15 years ago. Now, the staff greeted her by name. Harrison Sterling looked every one of his 78 years. He sat across from Elena with scotch and an expression that made her stomach clench. "I'm going to tell you something that will make you angry, but listen to the whole story first." "What is this about?" Harrison pulled out a folder filled with documents. A contract, dated 15 years ago, between Harrison Sterling and Elena Ruiz. "I don't understand," Elena whispered. "I never signed this." "No, you didn't, but I did, on your behalf." Harrison took a long drink. "Elena, Sarah Chen, the woman who gave you your first real job? She worked for me. I paid her to hire you, to train you, to give you equity in a startup I was secretly funding. Every opportunity in those first 5 years, I orchestrated it." Elena felt the room tilting. "Why would you?" "Because Daniel Hawthorne was dating my daughter, and I needed to know what kind of man he was." Harrison's voice was hard. "When Vivian brought him home, I had him investigated, found out about you, about Isabella, about how he'd thrown you both out and lied to my family about never being married." "You knew," Elena breathed. "All this time?" "I knew, and I was furious. But if I told Vivian, she wouldn't believe me. She was in love." Harrison leaned forward. "So I made a different plan. I would help you become successful, powerful, wealthy enough that when you and Daniel inevitably crossed paths, the truth would be undeniable." Elena flipped through the contract. Investment agreements, business partnerships, contracts with Sterling Industries that had launched Castellanos Industries. "You used me," she said, voice hollow. Everything I built, it wasn't real. You were pulling strings, making me your puppet to punish Daniel?" "No," Harrison said sharply. "I gave you opportunities. What you did with them was all you. Your brilliance, your determination, that was real. I just made sure you got chances that women like you don't usually get." "And when I succeeded? When did my company become worth $250 million? You could finally reveal the truth to Vivian." Elena's rage built. You could show her what kind of man she'd married. "Yes," Harrison admitted. 3 years ago I told Vivian everything. She divorced Daniel within 6 months. And then you partnered with me publicly. Made me your protege." Elena laughed bitterly. "I thought I'd earned your respect. But it was all just your elaborate revenge scheme." "What started as revenge became something else. I watched you build your company, raise Isabella, turn pain into power. I grew to genuinely respect you both." "Respect us?" Elena's voice rose. "You manipulated my entire life. Every success I thought I'd earned. I opened doors. You walked through them." Harrison's voice was sharp. "You negotiated contracts I had no hand in. You built relationships, created innovations, grew your company beyond anything I planned. Yes, I helped initially. But Castellanos Industries became what it is because of you." Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to think her empire was real. But all she could think of was Isabella's words. "You built this company to prove Daniel wrong." "Why tell me now?" Elena asked quietly. Harrison's expression softened. "Because Isabella came to see me yesterday." Elena's head snapped up. "What?" "She found out about my involvement. Did some digging after you fought." Harrison showed her a text. "Grandpa Harrison, I know what you did. I know you used my mother. We need to talk." "Grandpa Harrison?" Elena repeated numbly. "She's been calling me that for 3 years, since I started funding her education." Harrison smiled sadly. "Did you think that MIT scholarship was merit-based?" "It was, partly. But I made sure the selection committee knew which brilliant young woman I wanted them to choose." Elena felt her world shattering. "You've been in contact with Isabella for 3 years, and neither of you told me?" "She asked me not to. Said you'd refuse the money if you knew it came from me." Harrison's voice was gentle. "Elena, your daughter loves you fiercely, but she's been suffocating under your protection. You need to prove you don't need anyone's help. She wanted things for herself that weren't filtered through your trauma. So she went behind my back, just like you." Elena stood, chair scraping. "Everyone in my life has been lying to me, manipulating me. That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Elena's laugh was broken. "Daniel used me before discarding me. You used me as a weapon against him, and Isabella is using me as an excuse to reconnect with her father while taking money from the man who orchestrated my entire life." "Elena, sit down. There's more about Daniel, about why he really threw you out. There's something you don't know about that night." But Elena was already walking away, heels clicking against marble, past doormen who held doors for a woman they thought was powerful. A woman who was beginning to realize she'd never had any power at all. She made it to her car before the panic attack hit, sat hyperventilating, her carefully constructed world crumbling. Everything she'd built. Had she built any of it? Or had she been Harrison Sterling's project all along? And Isabella had been taking his money for 3 years, calling him Grandpa, building a relationship with the man who'd orchestrated Elena's life like she was a puppet. Elena's phone buzzed. "Isabella." "Mom, I know you met with Harrison. I know he told you. Please, can we talk? There's so much you don't understand." Elena stared at the message, then at the Sterling Club in her rearview mirror, then at the skyline dotted with buildings bearing her company's name. Castellanos Industries, her empire, her revenge, her proof that she mattered. Except it had never really been hers at all. When you discover your greatest victory was someone else's plan, does it make your success less real, or does it prove you never needed their help in the first place? Tell us what you think in the comments. Elena didn't go home, couldn't face the penthouse that Harrison Sterling had probably helped her buy, couldn't look at the awards on her walls that represented achievements someone else had orchestrated. She drove to the only place that felt real anymore, the old neighborhood where she'd lived after Daniel threw them out. The women's shelter was still there, renamed and renovated, but the building was the same. Elena sat in her Mercedes, a car worth more than the entire block, and stared at the entrance where she'd carried 3-year-old Isabella 15 years ago, both of them crying, both of them broken. That woman had been real. Poor, desperate, terrified, but real. Who was Elena Castellanos? A puppet? A project? A revenge fantasy Harrison Sterling had funded and directed? Her phone rang. Marcus Chen. Elena, where are you? The board meeting starts in an hour. The investors want to discuss the expansion. Cancel it, Elena said. What? Elena, we can't cancel. This is the biggest deal we've ever... I said cancel it. Elena's voice was dead. Marcus, I need you to do something for me. I need you to audit Castellanos Industries. Every contract, every partnership, every deal we've ever made. I need to know how much of it was real, and how much was Harrison Sterling pulling strings. Silence. Then, Elena, what happened? Just do it, please. She hung up before he could argue. The next call was from her lawyer. Ms. Castellanos, we have a problem. Daniel Hawthorne is filing a lawsuit. He's claiming you orchestrated his business failure through fraud and market manipulation. He has evidence, emails, contracts, testimony from former Sterling employees. If this goes to trial, let it go to trial, Elena said. I don't care anymore. You don't, Elena. You could lose everything. Your company, your reputation, potentially face criminal charges. I said I don't care. She hung up. The third call was from Isabella. Elena stared at her daughter's name on the screen, finger hovering over the answer button. Then she declined the call. Because what could she possibly say to Isabella? How could she explain that everything Elena had built, the empire she'd created to prove they didn't need Daniel, to show Isabella that they could succeed on their own, had been a lie from the beginning? A text came through. Mom, please. I need to talk to you. It's important. Elena turned off her phone. She spent the night in a cheap motel, the kind she used to be able to afford, back when she was real. The sheets were rough, the mattress sagged, the neighbor's TV blared through paper-thin walls. It felt more honest than her penthouse ever had. In the morning, Marcus appeared at her door with a folder and an expression that told Elena everything she needed to know before he even opened his mouth. How bad? She asked. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, looking at the audit results like they were a death sentence. 70% of our major contracts in the first 5 years came through Sterling connections. Harrison leveraged his relationships to get you meetings, pushed clients to choose Castellanos Industries over competitors, and guaranteed contracts with his own money. Elena closed her eyes. And after that? After that, you were legitimate. The last 10 years? That was all you, Elena. Your innovations, your negotiations, your vision. Harrison had no involvement. Marcus looked at her. But the foundation, everything you built on, that was his. So I'm a fraud, Elena said flatly. No, you're someone who was given opportunities and made the most of them. That's not fraud, Elena. That's just complicated. Complicated. Elena laughed bitterly. My entire life is a lie, but it's complicated. Marcus pulled out another document. There's more. Isabella filed paperwork yesterday to access the trust fund Daniel mentioned. $2 million from Daniel's grandfather. She's also applied for emancipation from Castellanos Industries. She wants to start her own company, separate from yours. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. She's leaving me. She's becoming her own person, Marcus corrected gently. Elena, she's 18. She's been your CTO since she was 16. Maybe she needs space to figure out who she is outside of being your daughter. Outside of being the weapon I used against her father, Elena whispered, remembering Isabella's words. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Elena took the documents, scanned them with numb fingers. Isabella's application was thorough, professional, devastating. She wanted to build quantum computing technology, something completely separate from Castellanos Industries' infrastructure business. She'd already secured preliminary investors. Harrison Sterling was listed as her primary backer. She chose him, Elena said. She chose Harrison over me. She chose herself, Marcus said. There's a difference. But Elena couldn't see the difference. All she could see was that her daughter, the person she'd built her entire life around, the reason for everything, was walking away. Her phone buzzed. She'd turned it back on out of habit. A news alert. Breaking. Castellanos Industries under investigation for market manipulation. CEO Elena Castellanos accused of orchestrating competitors' downfall. Daniel's lawsuit had gone public. Another alert. Tech prodigy. Isabella Castellanos announces split from mother's company, plans independent startup. And another, Harrison Sterling confirms decades-long involvement with Castellanos Industries. I helped a wronged woman get justice. Elena watched her carefully constructed image implode in real time, watched the media dissect her story, her success, her relationship with her daughter. Watched commentators debate whether she was a victim or a villain, whether her success was earned or given. Watched everything she'd built turn to ash. Marcus's phone rang. He answered, his face going pale. I understand. Yes, I'll tell her. He hung up and looked at Elena with something like pity. The board just voted. They want you to step down as CEO. They're citing the investigation, the negative publicity, and... He hesitated. Concerns about your mental stability. Mental stability, Elena repeated numbly. You canceled a major investor meeting with no explanation. You told your lawyer you don't care about criminal charges. You disappeared for 16 hours. Marcus's voice was gentle. Elena, they're worried about you. I'm worried about you. I'm fine. You're sitting in a $40 a night motel room when you own a penthouse worth $8 million. You're not fine. Elena looked around the dingy room, at the peeling wallpaper, the stained carpet, the broken dreams she'd tried so hard to rise above. Maybe she'd never risen at all. Maybe she'd just been lifted by Harrison Sterling's money and influence. A puppet dancing on strings she'd been too blind to see. What do I do? Elena whispered. Marcus, what do I do? You talk to your daughter, you fight the lawsuit, you prove that the last 10 years were real, even if the first 5 were complicated. Marcus took her hand. But first, you have to decide who Elena Castellanos really is. Not the woman Harrison Sterling created. Not the weapon against Daniel Hawthorne. Just you. Elena stared at their joined hands and realized she didn't know the answer. She'd spent 15 years being someone's victim, someone's project, someone's revenge. She'd built an empire on foundations laid by someone else. She'd raised a daughter to be a weapon against her father. Who was Elena Castellanos without all of that? She had no idea, and that terrified her more than losing everything else combined. Elena spent 2 more days in the motel before Sarah Chen found her. Sarah walked into the dingy room without knocking and sat on the sagging bed. You look like hell. Thanks. Harrison told me what happened, about telling you everything. Sarah pulled out coffee. He also told me you've been hiding here, refusing calls, letting your company implode. It's not my company, Elena said. It never was. It was Harrison's project. That's bullshit, Sarah said flatly. Elena looked at her, startled. You think I took Harrison's money to babysit some charity case? Sarah's eyes flashed. Elena, Harrison approached me 15 years ago, told me about you, about Daniel, offered to fund my startup if I'd hire you, and I said no. What? I said no, because I don't hire people as favors. Sarah sipped her coffee. So Harrison made a different offer. Interview her. If she's not brilliant, walk away. But if she is, give her a chance she wouldn't normally get. And, Elena whispered, and you were fucking brilliant. The inventory system you built in 3 days. I'd been trying to solve that for 6 months. You weren't charity, Elena. You were the best hire I ever made. But Harrison paid you. Harrison paid me to give you an interview. What happened after was all you. Sarah took Elena's hands. Yes, Harrison opened doors. But no amount of connections can make a mediocre businesswoman into a CEO worth $250 million. That was you. Elena wanted to believe her. Isabella hates me, she said quietly. She's leaving. She chose Harrison over me. She chose independence. Sarah squeezed her hands. Maybe you both need to figure out who you are when you're not defined by what Daniel did to you. I don't know who that is. Then that's where you start. Sarah stood, pulling Elena up. Come on, there's someone who wants to see you. Isabella was waiting in Sarah's car, face anxious and hopeful and scared. Elena froze. Isabella. Mom, please don't run, just listen. Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. I'm not leaving because I don't love you, Isabella said, words tumbling fast. I'm leaving because I need to know who I am, separate from being your daughter, separate from being the weapon you used against Dad. I never meant for you to feel like a weapon. Elena's voice broke. I know, but that's what I became. Every achievement was about proving Dad wrong. I'm tired of living my life as proof of someone else's mistake. Elena felt tears sliding down her face. I just wanted to protect you. And you did. You gave me everything. Isabella moved closer. But now I need to succeed on my own. Not because of your company, not because of Harrison's connections, just me. She paused. Like you did. The real you, not the version Harrison tried to create. The real me is scared, Elena admitted. Scared that without the revenge, I'm nothing. You're my mom, Isabella said simply. That's nothing. That's everything. Elena pulled her daughter into her arms, both crying, both holding on. I met with Dad again, Isabella said quietly. After his suicide attempt. Elena stiffened but didn't pull away. He told me something about the night he threw us out. Isabella pulled back to look at Elena. Mom, Harrison Sterling was there that night, at the apartment, when Dad kicked us out. Elena went cold. What? Dad said Harrison showed up right after we left, said he'd been watching the apartment, that he told Dad he knew about us, about the lies, that he was going to destroy Dad's relationship with Vivian unless... Isabella took a breath. Unless Dad gave Harrison a reason to help him instead. A reason like me, Elena whispered, like giving Harrison a weapon he could use. Dad said Harrison offered him a deal. Keep quiet about being married, never acknowledge us, and Harrison would let the relationship with Vivian continue. Harrison called it mutually beneficial. Elena felt like she was falling. So Daniel didn't just throw us away? Harrison encouraged it. I don't know. Dad's memory is fuzzy, and he's not reliable. Isabella's voice hardened. But Mom, I think Harrison has been manipulating all of us from the beginning. Not just you. Dad, me, Vivian. We've all been pieces in his game. Elena thought about Harrison's words. What started as revenge became something else. Had it? Or had he just gotten better at hiding his manipulation? What do we do? Elena asked. Isabella's smile was sharp. Elena's smile. We find out the truth, all of it. And then we decide who we want to be when we're not playing Harrison Sterling's game anymore. Elena looked at her daughter, brilliant, fierce, independent, and felt something shift in her chest. Not rage, not desperation. Hope. Okay, Elena said. Let's find the truth, together. Elena and Isabella spent the next 48 hours digging. They started with Daniel, still recovering in a psychiatric facility. He was broken but willing to talk, desperate to unburden himself. Harrison came to the apartment that night, Daniel said, hands shaking. About 20 minutes after I kicked you out. He'd been having me followed. Said he knew everything, about you, about Isabella, about my lies to Vivian. And? Elena prompted, Isabella recording. He said he could destroy me, ruin my relationship with Vivian before it started. Or he could help me. Daniel's voice broke. If I cut all ties with you and Isabella, if I never acknowledged you existed, he'd keep my secret. He'd let me marry Vivian, bring me into the Sterling family business. But why? Isabella asked. Why would he care? He said something about needing leverage, about how a secret was only valuable if it stayed secret. Daniel looked at Elena. I was young and stupid and scared. I took the deal. He kept his word for a while. But 3 years ago, when you started getting successful, he told Vivian everything. Destroyed my marriage. He was always going to destroy you, Elena said slowly. From the beginning. He just wanted to control when and how. Next was Vivian Sterling Hawthorne, Harrison's daughter. She met them at a coffee shop, nervous and exhausted. I don't know what my father told you, Vivian said, but I had no idea about you and Isabella until 3 years ago. We know, Elena said. We're here about your father. How much do you know about his business dealings? Why are you asking? Isabella leaned forward. Mrs. Hawthorne, how did your first husband die? Vivian went pale. What does that have to do with... Please, Isabella said gently. It's important. Richard died in a car accident, 15 years ago, right before I met Daniel. Vivian's voice was barely a whisper. Elena pulled out documents. Richard died 3 months before Daniel threw me out. His car went off a bridge. The police report noted tampered brake lines. The investigation was closed after your father made a substantial donation to the Police Benevolent Fund. Vivian's cup clattered. No. My father wouldn't. Richard was bleeding your trust fund dry, Isabella continued, showing financial records. Gambling debts, bad investments, affairs. Then Richard had a convenient accident, and you were suddenly single. The perfect time to introduce you to a new husband, one my father could control. Daniel was never supposed to be permanent, Elena said. He was a placeholder, someone your father could manipulate while you recovered, someone he could discard when ready. But why? Vivian's voice shook. Why manipulate all of us? Control, a new voice said. Harrison Sterling stood in the entrance, looking older than Elena had ever seen him. He walked to their table slowly. May I sit? No one stopped him. You've been busy, Harrison said, looking at the documents. Very thorough. I taught you well. Elena. You taught me to be paranoid, Elena corrected. To trust no one. So what's your angle, Harrison? Why orchestrate all of this? Harrison pulled out his wallet, removed a photograph. Old, faded, creased. A young woman with dark hair and darker eyes. She looked like Elena, like Isabella. Her name was Maria, Harrison said quietly. She worked as a maid in my father's house when I was 25. I fell in love with her, wanted to marry her. My father forbade it, said she was beneath us, that she'd ruin the family reputation. He touched the photograph with a trembling finger. I was weak. I listened. I let him send her away. She was pregnant. I didn't know until years later. She raised our son alone, in poverty, while I married the woman my father chose. Built the empire he wanted. You had another child, Vivian whispered. I have a brother? You had a brother. He died when he was 30. Drug overdose. Spent his whole life poor, angry, searching for a father who'd abandoned him. Harrison looked at Elena. When I found out about you, about Daniel throwing you out with his daughter, I saw Maria all over again, saw my son, saw my own cowardice. So you decided to play God with our lives? Elena's voice was sharp. I decided to give you what I couldn't give Maria, opportunity, power, the ability to destroy the man who'd wronged you. Harrison's eyes were bright with tears. But you're right, it was control. It was me trying to rewrite history. That's not saving, Isabella said. That's manipulation. You used my mother's pain, my existence, Vivian's grief, all to play out some redemption fantasy. I know. Harrison looked at them each. I know what I've done, and I'm sorry. But I can't undo it. Can't give you back 15 years of being puppets in my guilt-driven scheme. No, you can't, Elena agreed. She stood, gathering documents. But here's what you can do. Sign over full control of Castellanos Industries to me. No strings, no backdoor deals. It becomes mine, really mine. Or I release all of this to the press. Your involvement in Richard's death, your manipulation of Daniel, everything. Harrison went white. Elena? And, Isabella interrupted, you dissolve the funding for my new company. I don't want your money. I want to succeed or fail on my own merits. You'd both be throwing away millions. We'd be throwing away your guilt, Elena corrected. Your control. You need to save women you think are weak. But Harrison, I was never weak. I was poor. I was desperate. I was wronged. But I was never weak. She leaned down. Maria wasn't weak either. She just loved a coward who didn't deserve her. And your son? He wasn't a failure. He was a victim of your choices. Harrison's tears fell openly. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I know you are, Elena said. But sorry isn't enough. Freedom is enough. Truth is enough. She placed a contract on the table. Sign it. Transfer full ownership to me. Remove yourself from any involvement in my company or Isabella's future. Then stay out of our lives. Harrison stared at the contract. And if I refuse? Then I destroy you, Elena said simply. The way you destroyed everyone else. But I'm tired of revenge. Tired of destruction. I just want to be free of you. Harrison picked up the pen with shaking hands. He signed. 2 hours later, Elena stood in the Castellanos Industries boardroom, facing the board that had voted to remove her. Gentlemen, she said, I have an announcement. As of today, I am the sole owner of Castellanos Industries. Harrison Sterling has divested himself of all involvement. No silent partners, no hidden benefactors, just me. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Additionally, I'm dropping all charges against Daniel Hawthorne. The lawsuit he filed was legitimate. I did orchestrate his business failure. I did manipulate markets. And I'm not going to deny it or fight it. Instead, I'm going to own it. Ms. Castellanos, that's corporate suicide. That's honesty, Elena interrupted. Something this company hasn't had in 15 years. So here's what's going to happen. I'm restructuring. Cutting ties with any partnerships built on Harrison's connections. Starting over with legitimate contracts and transparent dealings. Anyone who doesn't like it can leave. She looked at each board member. But if you stay because you believe in what we're actually building. Not revenge schemes or puppet empires. Real innovation, real value, real integrity. Silence. Then Marcus stood. I'm in. Sarah Chen stood. Me too. One by one, the board members stood. Not all 3 walked out. But enough stayed. Enough believed. Enough wanted to build something real. 6 months later, Elena stood in a small office. Nothing like the penthouse suite she'd occupied at Castellanos Industries' old headquarters. This space was modest, efficient, real. She'd sold the old building. Downsized the company by 40%. cut every contract that had Harrison Sterling's fingerprints on it, lost half her net worth in the process, and she'd never felt more powerful in her life. "Mom?" Isabella poked her head through the door. "The presentation starts in 5 minutes. You ready?" Elena smiled at her daughter. Isabella had her own office now, 2 floors down in her own building for her own company. Quantum Solutions had launched 3 months ago with 0 Sterling money and was already making waves in the tech world. "Ready," Elena said. They walked to the conference room together, side by side. Equal partners now, not mother weapon and daughter shield, just 2 women who'd survived manipulation and come out stronger. The room was packed. Investors, clients, media. Marcus gave Elena an encouraging nod. Sarah winked. And in the back row, looking uncomfortable but present, sat Daniel Hawthorne. Elena had invited him. Not because she'd forgiven him. Forgiveness was still a work in progress. But because Isabella had asked, Elena was learning that her daughter's choices mattered more than her own need for revenge. "Thank you all for coming," Elena began. 6 months ago, Castellanos Industries was worth $250 million. Today, it's worth $90 million. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. "That's not a failure," Elena continued. "That's a choice. We cut every partnership built on manipulation or leverage. We restructured to focus on genuine innovation rather than market domination. We chose integrity over empire." She pulled up a slide showing their new contracts, smaller companies, ethical partnerships, transparent dealings. "We're building something different now, something real. And yes, it's worth less money, but it's worth more truth." Elena met the eyes of the investors. "So if you're looking for the next billion-dollar unicorn built on secrets and leverage, you're in the wrong room. But if you want to invest in a company that succeeds on merit, we're here." The presentation lasted 30 minutes. When it ended, half the investors left. The other half lined up to write checks. After the meeting, Elena found Daniel waiting outside her office. "That was brave," he said quietly. "What you did in there, admitting the truth about how the company started." "It was necessary," Elena corrected. "I'm tired of building on lies." They stood in awkward silence. Then Daniel said, "Isabella asked me to have dinner with you both next week. Family dinner?" she called it. He laughed bitterly. "I don't know why she wants that. I don't deserve—" "It's not about what you deserve," Elena interrupted. "It's about what Isabella needs. And she needs to know her father, not the monster I painted you as, not the victim Harrison manipulated you into being. Just you, whoever that is." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "I'm nobody, Elena. I'm a washed-up has-been who threw away everything that mattered." "Then maybe dinner is your chance to figure out who you could become," Elena said. "Not for me. I don't need anything from you anymore. But for Isabella. She deserves a father who tries." "And if I fail?" "Then you fail. But at least you tried." Elena started to walk away, then paused. "Daniel, Harrison manipulated both of us. He encouraged you to throw us out. He built my success. He's controlled all of us for 15 years. We can keep being his puppets, or we can choose to be something else." "What did you choose?" Daniel asked. "I chose freedom," Elena said simply. "And it's terrifying and uncertain and smaller than I planned. But it's mine." That evening, Elena sat in her new apartment. Modest, comfortable, filled with furniture she'd actually chosen instead of the designers Harrison had recommended. Isabella was there, cooking dinner, music playing from her phone. "This is nice," Isabella said, stirring pasta sauce. "This place, it feels like home." "The penthouse didn't?" "The penthouse felt like a trophy. This feels like where we actually live." Isabella tasted the sauce, added salt. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. Do you regret it? Giving up so much money, so much power, to start over? Elena thought about the question. Really thought. I regret the time I wasted on revenge, she said finally. I regret making you part of my war against your father. I regret not seeing Harrison's manipulation sooner. She moved to stand beside Isabella at the stove. But starting over? Building something real? Finally being free to figure out who Elena Castellanos actually is? No, I don't regret that at all. Isabella smiled. Good. Because I don't regret it either. This version of you, the one who admits mistakes, who chooses truth over empire, who lets me make my own choices, this is the mom I always wanted. Elena pulled her daughter into a hug, both of them holding on tight. I'm proud of you, Elena whispered, not because you're successful or brilliant, though you are. I'm proud because you refused to let my pain define your choices. You're better than I ever was. I learned from the best, Isabella said. You taught me to fight, to survive, to build something from nothing. Those lessons were real, Mom. Harrison didn't teach you those. Life did. And you taught them to me. They ate dinner together, laughing and talking about Isabella's new quantum computing project, about Elena's restructured company, about the future they were building, together but separate, connected but independent. Later, as Elena cleaned dishes and Isabella scrolled through her laptop, Elena caught her reflection in the kitchen window. She looked different. Older, yes, but also lighter. Freer. For 15 years, she'd been defined by what Daniel did to her, by what Harrison made of her. By revenge and rage, and the need to prove she mattered. Now she was just Elena. Flawed, uncertain, rebuilding. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. When you finally let go of the need to prove yourself to people who never deserved you, what do you discover about who you really are? Share your journey in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else to choose freedom over revenge.